saying about the 7, count them, 7, subsidiary motions. Now, subsidiary motion, think of it like a sort of a virus. Not a computer virus, but one that I've got right now, in fact. A virus cannot live outside a host cell. And a subsidiary motion cannot live without a main motion. So it all begins with the main motion. What a subsidiary motion is going to do, it's going to modify, it's going to postpone, or it's going to dispose of a main motion. And you'll see how that works. There are 7 of them, and think of them also as sort of like computer files. If you work with Windows, you've got the file system, or a directory system, a subdirectory going down the tree. When you close up a program, I would say, you don't normally just pull the plug on your computer and go to bed. You probably close up the files one after the other in a certain order before you shut down your computer. And so it is with handling the subsidiary motions. They have an order of priority, 1 to 7. We're going to start with the least priorities, least priority 1, and we'll work down to number 7, which has the highest priority. Before we do that, I want to define one thing, and that is the pending motion. If you think of these like file folders, 1 to 7, it's easy to get confused. Where are we in this process? Where are we in this tree, this directory tree? That's the job of the presiding officer, and it's also the job of the members of the assembly to be aware, what are we focusing on? At what point? We can only talk about one topic at one time. The assembly can only decide one topic at one time. You'll see as we go down the tree, there is a certain logic to that, how that works. Let's see the first. Postpone indefinitely. I can characterize this as the topic's too hot and we don't want to touch it. Just think, imagine there might be a subject, somebody brings up a motion that if it came to a vote, could divide the club. Could put a split right down the middle of the club. Let's just say, for example, this club cannot vote for a district governor. We cannot elect a district governor ourselves. But suppose we could. We have 2 people in the room who want to be district governor. And we know if one of them is elected, the other person is going to take his plan to go to a new club. He's going to split the club apart. We don't want to touch that. In other words, we don't want to make a decision on it. So we postpone it, that main motion, indefinitely. Now, this is interesting. It requires, you have to make a motion. It requires a second. And you can debate back and forth. But now, because we're making a very, very important decision here, make sure we need a majority, of course, as always, to put this thing, we're not going to touch it. It's too hot to handle. Let's go to number 2. We spent a lot of time on this one. This is the one that's used most often. Now, there are 3 ways to amend a motion. Any amendment has to be what we call germane. It's spelled like German with the E at the end of it. What it means is, any amendment has to relate to the main motion in some ways. I'll give you a good example. Say you want to make a motion to commend an officer of this club for the job the officer has done. Another person can put up his hand and say, I want to amend the motion by striking out the word commend and putting in the word condemn. That motion is in order. Even though it turns it upside down, 360 degrees, well, 180 actually, it is still the reaction of the club to the officer. So that is a valid amendment if you want to make it. Now there are 3 ways to make an amendment. One way would be to add words, to insert words or add words. I move that the club purchase a new PC. That's the main motion. Another member gets up and he's going to add some words. I've been shopping. I've been looking around, and PCs, I want to add at the end of the motion, not to cost more than $1,000. That is an amendment. And now debate focuses on that. topic. 1,000 yes, 1,000 limit no. That is the pending motion. A second way to make an amendment is to strike out a word from the original main motion. The original main motion was, I move the club should buy a new PC. One member could say, I want to amend the motion to read, strike out the word new. The club should purchase a PC. That becomes the focus of the debate, yes. New or any kind of PC. And then there's a third way to make an amendment, to strike out and insert words. Main motion, the club should buy a new PC. Member could put up his hand and say, I want to amend the motion to read, strike out the word PC and insert notebook, computer. Then the debate focuses on notebook or PC. And once that's decided, then you can proceed to the main vote. That's how you amend. A motion to amend a main motion is debatable. You can debate it if the motion you're amending is also debatable. And it requires a majority vote. It gets pretty complicated here because you can actually have an amendment to the amendment. Sorry. But that's as far as it goes. Never allow more than one amendment to an amendment because it just gets ridiculous and crazy. Give you an example how this might work. Main motion. I move the club should buy a new PC. Another member puts up his hand. I move to amend the motion to read the club should buy a new PC to cost not more than $1,000. And the third person puts up his hand and says, I move to amend the amendment to read not more than $1,000 net. You can do that. And then that's the focus. That is the pending motion. If the club decides, this net thing's not such a good idea, we vote against it, then you're back to new PC costing $1,000. If you don't think 1,000 cap is a good idea, then you're back to the club should buy a new PC. And then you can put in other amendments, but you can only do 2 at a time. Okay? Let's move on to number 3.
I have a question.
Well, at the end, because I've really got to go through here. Number 3, refer to a committee. This happens. Let's say there's a topic which we don't have the expertise for. We just don't have the competence to make a decision. So we refer it to a committee for study. That can happen. A committee of experts. If you make this motion, you have to specify 2 things. First, who is the committee? And secondly, when should they give their report? Typical would be, I move to refer this question, to buy a new PC, to a committee to be appointed by our chairman, and the committee will report back to us at our next meeting. That is a good motion to refer to committee. What the club is doing essentially is washing its hands of the decision. It's letting the committee make that decision. Make sure I get this straight now. If there's an amendment to the main motion, and an amendment to the amendment, you refer the whole thing to the committee. Let them handle it. Let them hash it out. It's debatable, but only about the wisdom of referring to the committee. No debate about PC versus laptop. None of that. It's just simply, this question should be sent to committee. It's the only thing you talk about. You need a majority vote to do it. And you require a second, and it is debatable.